in the billing machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So that one appealed to me particularly because of my background and what I like doing.
Definitely, yeah.
So yeah, and each one's different. I find with all of them, I get challenged as much. I am challenged every time, and I probably get more out of it than what the people I'm seeing get out of it.
Do you just do that sort of for off occasions now? You don't know. It's just to keep in touch. Yeah.
It's just like I find that my work. I'm very fortunate in one way. I get paid for my hobby.
Yeah,
sure. But the trap with that is it's hard not to do it 24/7.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you know, but it each burns you up. So look, so I'm on call 7 days a week. I'm sitting here. I've heard my phone. I've had 3 text messages since I've been here.
Yeah.
So work's going on, and they're saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And it'll probably be something or other's happening.
Sure. Yeah. Cool.
And that'll happen at 12 o'clock at night. And
wow.
Oh, well, yeah.
I mean, really, that's what you want. You want a job that you love, that you can dedicate yourself to.
But also you need a life, and that's the challenge. So I have another life restoring vintage motorcycles. So that's
great.
So that's something totally different. It's very hands-on, very mechanical, very structural. So some people do sport, and some people do this, and some people. So you've got to have something else.
Especially if you're doing something that's emotionally intensive, like what you're doing. You need escape every now and then.
Well, because it can be, it can get you down.
We were watching this documentary. It was actually really great on Salvation Army's contact with
in Sydney. Yeah, this particular guy in Sydney, and
he just had sort of a few clients, if you could call them clients, and what do you call them?
Kept coming back.
Just drug abusers or whatever, and just their different stories, and like it's just intense.
It's amazing and good on them.
What's the time?
It's 9:17.
I want to know actually if you have any views on drug abuse. You probably would have quite a few. And how it affects, low income, or is it a common thing? Is there an association between mental illness, homelessness?
Again, it's a really complicated and complex area. If there was a simple answer, it'd be sorted, and it's not. I think 2 stories pop into my mind. I'm all about stories. The first one is everybody's probably medicating in a particular way. Everybody might have a cigarette occasionally, or might have a drink occasionally, or whatever. And a lot of it's legal, so that's okay, I suppose. And then another story comes into my mind. I was talking to this is going to sound really weird. I was talking to a Jesuit priest, and I said, why is there differences between all the faiths? Why are the Catholics have this sort of view of the world, and the Anglicans have this view, and the Salvation Army this sort of views? Because I'm of no particular church, so I was just interested. And he said, I said, well, why the Catholics? Why don't they mind a drink? And it's okay to have a drink. It's okay to have a punt too. But others, you can't have a drink, you can't have a punt. And his put on his spin and his conversation to me was, well, look, God, inverted, whatever that is, gave us free choice. And so you're allowed to have a drink and you're allowed to have a punt. That's okay. That was the gift, to have free choice. Why wouldn't you? That's enjoying living. But he said when that free choice gets taken away, that's when there's a problem. And so that comes into the addiction question. Okay. So when you've got an addiction, it means your free choice is gone.
Right.
And that's when intervention should occur. Some people would say.
That's a really great way of looking at it. I really like that. Makes sense.
So it's a very liberal view of the world, I suppose, because it says, well, look, there's some quite functioning people that we would say are drug addicts, but they're functioning
and still have free choice.
They still have free choice, but they're exercising their free choice in one way. They say, I want free choice to do that. But it's not affecting the rest.
So, but often though, the only way that you could determine if someone's lost their free choice is an outsider making that as choice, making that observation, because the person themselves who has lost the free choice is often under that trap and doesn't realise.
Possibly.
So you need outside help, and that's where you have religion coming in telling you what to do, because you cannot be given the responsibility of making good decisions for yourself because you might be not able to make,
Yes, and then the flip to the free choice conversation. I said, well, okay, so why did the Salvation Army, for example, say, look, no alcohol and whatever, no smoking, no drugs, no alcohol, and why do sort of the Baptists say, the common joke, not a joke, so they no dancing, or there's all these rules that some churches have that people can't do, which denies free choice.
Did you say no dancing?
Yeah, there's some, I don't know what there's some, they say, we can't do this, whatever that is. And they're saying, the way this priest said it to me, well, that's a different spin on how it should be, and that spin is we should try and live on earth as it would be in heaven. And I said, but that just denies free choice.
I don't get the question.
And he's saying, so it's a matter of philosophical, theological views about which one you take, which one works for you. So some people would say abolition is the way to go. No drugs, no alcohol, no cigarettes. They're all bad. Whereas others would say, well, look, a little bit more liberal. Well, no, we need to deal with if it's going to take away free choice. So, it's a long rambling story that didn't answer your question. but I'm saying it all depends on the frame that you bring to it about when there is a problem and what's the extent or how big the problem is.
Yeah. And it's up to the individual circumstance of that person. So everyone's different, and like you said, you can be a drug user without being addicted.
But that would still be illegal. So from the rules point of view, which is a very different
story. That's just a fictional story, really, that you have to sometimes think about if you, I don't want to get arrested. But it really has nothing to do with reality.
But other people will say that if it's illegal, and therefore it's wrong.
Well, that's because they take their morals from an external source. They don't make up their own morals and values.
Well, we all are shaped. So anyway, I'm just saying it's a complex.
The whole other podcast.
It's a complex area, and I think as long as just be true to yourself and true to others, and go through life as best you can without hurting other people and doing the best.
Everything, just as we were talking about before, work, everything in moderation. Anything to excess is always going to harm you.
Take away your choice. Yeah,
that's right.
You should be allowed to do whatever it is that you want to do in your life, but as soon as you start impacting others, then there can be a societal, influence on what you do.
And this priest also said to me that as soon as you start hurting yourself, that's also bad. Because that was the gift that God gave you. So he'd say there's also this obligation to yourself
it's bad for you, and you can feel bad about it, and you're going to suffer consequences for doing that to yourself, but it's not bad in the sense that you need to be punished from an external source, someone else telling you that that's bad. That's ridiculous. I think.
It's one of the great mysteries.
Yeah. I don't think it's a mystery that people should be able to take responsibility for their own life in every capacity. And
you're talking about the environment in which a person's been brought up in, and that's a big question mark, and that's the whole, reason why corporation, organisation like Vinnie's is set up, is because the environment, which isn't as equal as it could be or should be, and not everyone has the same choices and options. So
they're helping people to live their life the best possible way. Because
that's right.
They obviously
or providing the space for people to give of themselves. So there's two ways to spin any organisation. One is we deliver something to you, or the other one is to say we create a space for you to provide your skills and your resources as a gift to others.
Sure.
So it comes back to the question I said.
That's nice way to begin the second one.
Because I get more out of engaging with people that are in theoretically, conceptually a worse place than me. I actually get more out of it, I reckon, personally as an individual.
Yeah, right.
It enriches me more than I'm sure it enriches them. They might get whatever the resources is that they want, and they probably think, well, thank God he's gone. And I'm just sitting there saying, well, thanks for sharing that, because that's tough. That's really tough. And So
I can imagine that.
So I get a lot out of it, and that's probably the motivation, the reason why people do volunteer, because they're getting stuff out of it. But we need to actually make that clear that we're getting stuff out of it as well.
Absolutely. There's no point just going, I'm doing this for that
because
person.
I'm a great person.
Exactly. It's not about that. It's like, I always think of this actually, ever since I saw it when I was like 12. On a Friends episode, Phoebe has a massive argument with Joey. I'm not a huge Friends fan, but anyway, I just remember this.
You watch it every day. Every day you come home, there's a Friends episode. No, I'm joking.
And she goes, there is no selfless deed. And the whole episode was about them arguing about that one phrase. And she's like, there is absolutely no selfless deed. And then so Joey, I think it was, I can't remember who, was trying to do deeds the whole episode that he could prove that he didn't feel good about it. But she kept proving, no, you felt good for doing that, didn't you? So don't try to be a good person.
It's similar, like when my sister's an emergency room doctor, and when she was going into medicine, they wanted to know why do you want to do it. And if you get all these students that come through and they're like, because I want to help people, and then they're like, well, this is not going to cut it because you can help people for so long, and then you're going to get depressed, and that's it. But if you go and, like, she went in and she goes, I just want a lot of money, and then they're like, okay, great. Because the more you study, the more money you're going to get, and eventually going to have a lot of money, and you're just going to have to get better and better at your job. It's not like you can, especially in medicine, you can get worse and worse and then keep earning more money, So, but like you can only help people, or have that good intention for so long
Yeah.
before it might either get broken and you might have to start again or something like that.
But you can look at it in the other way. It's not a bad thing to
No,
go with that attitude
obviously,
of I want to
yeah.
benefit myself more than anything else, because if everyone looked after themselves and did things because they wanted to and worked on that, then everybody, from the inside out, then everybody would be better off too. So it's not a bad thing if everyone looked after themselves.
And that's a message for today.
I think he needs to leave.
I will need to go soon.
Yeah, that's right. No, I think we've got everything else. Well, I mean,
well, an hour and a half is a long podcast.
It is.
Sometimes it goes.
We've had a lot to talk about. It's been good.
We still just scratch the surface.
Well, we love delving into philosophical topics, so we try. Yeah. Sometimes
well, I think we only started touching that at
We
the
didn't-
backside of the podcast. You know, we at the front it was good.
But it leads on to another podcast with another organisation
That's-
or the big issue.
Well,
we're going to get the Salvage
Just
coming
like
to
you
bitch
said.
about you.
I think one thing that you'll find is amongst all the charities is there's a lot of respect for each other. And what
Yeah,
they do.
sure.
It's not we can't be competitive.
You've all got the same goal. Why would you have to be competitive? We've all got the same interests.
No, and we tend to share resources. I mean, a good example was through the fires in Victoria.
Yeah.
We had to all work together. That was amazing. Now that was the most amazing of my experience so
Really?
far. Oh yeah, that was
Fires,
horrible. That was horrible.
Yeah.
Like Black Saturday.
Yeah, and I got that morning. I got a phone call from the federal government that was 10 in the morning on the Saturday. They said, look, we've just released it was a couple of $1 million. It's moving off into your bank accounts. The state's on fire. And I knew the state was on fire, but
The state's on fire.
and then we sort of mobilised, and we're more recovery rather than response. So we called in some favours, and a business person said, yeah, you can have our 10,000 square metre warehouse to store donations. So we called for donations, and donations started coming in, and this warehouse started to fill up, and then we didn't have enough volunteers. So we called for volunteers, and we had 10,000 volunteers, literally 10,000 turn up to help us at this warehouse. So I'm down at this warehouse, and there is this trucks and containers coming in from interstate and overseas into this warehouse,
Oh
and
my
it's
God.
just flooding in. Meanwhile, you've got this backdrop of stories. We were hearing stories where there was kids camping, and
Oh no.
it's still. Calling parents as the fires come through just toasted them, and some of our volunteers dying, and it was just
Oh no. Yeah.
anyway. And meanwhile, all this is going on. So you've got all this warmth happening. Excuse the bad language, but you've got all this warmth and giving happening of a backdrop of death, and it's
That's
it was
amazing.
quite-
Yeah.
But the best story was in there is that we had this Bedford truck turns up, and there's a couch on it, and a fridge, and a few other things, and it's sort of like. And then out of this truck, there's these bikies, badged bikies. So we're talking like one of the gangs.
Yeah, right.
The gangs turned up. These gangs, hairy men, badges, leather jackets, and the brand was like a big brand. It's the scary bikie brand.
Yeah. Hell's Angels.
Yeah, well, one. I'm not going to say which one, but it was one. Anyway, they've turned up and they've jumped off, and they started to. Where's the staff? They said, "Where's the staff room?" We said, "Where all the volunteers hang out?" That's that area over there. And they said, "That's okay." But they had all sorts. We had people that had just come out from prison that were volunteering. It was great. It was a really good mix of people. Anyway, they unloaded the couch, put down the coffee table, put down the fridge, loaded up, and then said, "This is for you guys." What? So we're donating our club room to you guys. So when you've finished doing all this, you can sit down and watch the telly, grab yourself a drink from the fridge. So the fridge is full. It was just we're sitting there, and these guys are thinking of us. It was quite nice.
Well, see, that's the thing.
That's
What
amazing,
you're
yeah.
involved in is you would see the most extremes in human behaviour and the most beautiful, warm, like you said, beautiful behaviour, and then you would see just horrific situations. So it would be so enlightening for you to be involved in.
Oh, it gets quite emotional. The organisation, there was many people crying. There was tears for weeks and weeks and weeks because it just kept coming back.
Yeah.
And so when the Tassie fires went off, I was emotionally supporting a lot of the CEO, Vinnie's down there at the same time, because you just keep running and you're on call 24/7 and you're hearing bad stories and good stories, and there's people that have been caught up in it, may have lost houses or died or whatever. So it can get quite confronting. But
I can imagine. Yeah.
So yeah, but it's also good.
Definitely. Yeah.
It was nice to be able to.
Don't forget, you're the one gaining out of everything here.
That's right.
That's right. It's a story. It's here on the other podcast having a chat.
Exactly.
Anyway. Anyway, I better go to work now.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in. And
it's a pleasure,
great. And if anyone wants to volunteer, how do you, for Vinnies?
Just call the Vinnies and ask to speak to, well, call anyone and say, look, I'd like to speak to the volunteer coordinator.
Volunteer coordinator.
And generally most organisations have that.
Is there a website that you can apply for volunteering online?